Well, for us, we have in our global equity strategy about 40 companies. In our climate solutions fund, we have another 16. So we'll call it 56 businesses that we have engagement with. In our strategy, and it's not the only strategy, there's another way to do this. Our strategy is to look for great businesses, great management teams, where there's an opportunity to invest with a margin of safety and help those businesses grow. Another strategy might be is to look for businesses that are not such good businesses and help make them be better businesses through engagement or otherwise, which I think can be quite effective. That's not our skill set, that's not what we've chosen to do. But sustainability, as it relates to each of the specific businesses, is a critical component to our assessment of their long-term success. And they know full well, businesses that we're invested with, know full well our position on this, our views on this. We believe in engaging very directly with our businesses, and if necessary, we'll engage publicly, although we've not really had to do that on too many instances.
Bill, I want to come back to a point you made, and not just get into tactics just yet, but more the response that you're witnessing from the business community, from business organizations, from policymakers, and the public at large, that we aren't seeing a stronger response. You make such a forceful case, and you admitted that in your youth you said, well, you must believe this, it's true. But you find, obviously, for 24 years now, you've been making the message. But, in fact, some of those obstacles are quite strong. Can you talk through those different interest groups? And why is it you think the realization isn't there, whether it be business, policymakers, and the public?
So the realization increasingly is there. The polling data is very strong. 75% of Americans now understand that global warming is a serious issue and something needs to happen, which is 75% of Americans agreeing on any. I mean, 50% of Americans think Elvis is alive. I mean, this is a serious number, okay? And it's gone up a lot in the last 2 years. And the reason is because 80-some% of U.S. counties have had a federally declared weather disaster in the last 2 years. I mean, when you turn on the TV and you see the Atlantic Ocean filling the New York City subway system with water, and it's not a movie, then you're forced to sort of think, maybe something is awry here, and that's what's been going on. In one sense, the business community, I think, has been well ahead of the curve here. I mean, there are people now in many of our major corporations whose job it is to think about these things and about sustainability. There's been enough pressure from groups like Ceres or from environmental groups or things to kind of make it an issue and put it on their radar and go to work. And that's really good. And the trouble is twofold here for them. One is that those companies, though they're willing to look at their own practices and try to cut emissions in the company and whatever else, have left the political discussion of climate change to others. In this case, others meaning the fossil fuel industry. That's who's people whose core business is on the line when it comes to climate change, and so they have dominated the Washington discussion and indeed the discussion in many other capitals. And the rest of business has, at this point, fairly shamefully just sort of backed away and said, okay, we're not going to engage in that because we've got other priorities and so and so. The other thing I think that's been a problem for sort of investment communities and things like that is realizing that there are now two groups of companies that one has to deal with. And one is companies that you can change and shift and do all the things that you were talking about that are exactly right. This sort of legacy of shareholder engagement and the things that Ceres has championed and shareholder resolution and all the kind of fights that are necessary and healthy parts of shifting things as we go along the way that societies deal with all kinds of problems. And then there's this other group of companies, the fossil fuel industry and this issue, that are just unreachable. They're not going to shift. Their business, at least for now, has everything to do with those reserves in the ground and looking for more of them. I mean, Exxon boasts about spending $100 million a day looking for more hydrocarbons, even though we've got 5 times more than we can safely burn. And so, the students had me the other day. They were just trying to explain this to their board, someone on their board of trustees, and they said to them, well, look, here's the thing. If we have a problem with Apple and they're not paying their Chinese laborers enough, that doesn't mean we have to hate iPhones, okay? It just means we have to pass some shareholder resolution, put some pressure on them, and they'll, stop paying bad wages and the price of an iPhone will go up a buck and, on the roll will go. Okay. I.e., there's a small flaw in their business plan that we can deal with. The problem with the fossil fuel industry is the flaw is the business plan, okay? And it's not fixable in the same way. And hence the rise of this rare, and it should be rare, call for divestment from these.
But is it your argument that policymakers have been reluctant to act on this because they reflect a normal distribution of views of the
No,
because they've been influenced by a slight law?
Because they're, so just to give a small example, okay? We've been working on, as some of you know, on this fight over this thing called the Keystone Pipeline, okay? This thing is a really poor idea. It connects to the second biggest pool of carbon on Earth and some of the dirtiest energy that you could ever find, all right? And as James Hansen at NASA, our foremost climatologist, said, burn this stuff on top of everything else you're burning, and it'll be game over for the climate. Okay, that's true. Several other things too. If we do the Powder River Basin, mine all the coal there, or if we go to Australia and mine all the coal there, there's a few other places around the world with these big pools of carbon. But you would think that having your foremost climatologist say something like that would be enough to have some companies and some politicians and stuff say, well, game over for the climate, that doesn't sound good, let's try something else, okay? But nobody said that. There was no response like that, not from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, not from, just the opposite. We had to send 1,253 people to jail in the largest civil disobedience action in 30 years in this country, even to win a 1-year delay on that, a delay that's now sort of up. And so Congress has taken, this to go to your point, Congress has taken now 4 votes on this Keystone thing. And it's unbelievable. You can go to the website, dirtyenergymoney.com, and see for yourself. But if you know how much money a politician has taken from the fossil fuel industry, you can predict with unerring accuracy how they voted. It's much better predictor than party ID and anything else. These guys have gamed the system, and they've had to, because what they're doing at this point is illegitimate. I mean, they continue to be the only industry on Earth that's allowed to put out its waste for free.
Is it that one-sided though? I mean, is that fair if you were a congressman or a congresswoman from North Dakota? Are you voting that way because